How is it, genuinely, how is it that around 2,000 priceless objects could have been stolen from one of the most prestigious museums on the planet before the police launched an investigation? So, according to reports, the number of artefacts, some of which date back to the 15th century BC, have been stolen from the British Museum, which is the third most visited art museum on the planet and arguably the most famous. To me, talk about Raiders of the Lost Art, really. But I'm joined now by historian Martyn Whittock. Martyn, some of these artefacts apparently were valued way into the tens of thousands, found themselves on eBay for around 40 quid. What's gone on here?
Well, it really is shocking. There's no question about it. Last Thursday, I was on another news platform saying, well, of course, you won't find this stuff on eBay, will you? Well, you would. Apparently, you would. And what this goes to show is that it wasn't what I thought it was at the time, which was, stealing to order, somebody taking stuff and putting it out on the dark web, to illegal collectors and so on. It clearly was somebody, it appears, simply pilfering on a regular basis over decades and not having a way of disposing of it that maximised its value. Not that that would have made it right, of course, but there'd been a kind of a grim logic there. But it would appear now reportedly appearing on eBay. It's absolutely shocking. I remember a few years ago when I needed to see or wanted to see a very rare Anglo-Saxon silver penny. I had to fill in all sorts of protocols, absolutely rightly so. I went through security checks. I looked at the coin. I discussed it with an expert there. And then you'd be relieved to know I left the coin at the British Museum. But of course, I was an outsider. And what this goes to show is how vulnerable collections are to the rogue insider. And of course, it is a rogue insider. Thousands of conservators, thousands of curators doing amazing jobs. But one or two people.
Well, let me just cut in here, Martyn. Let me just cut in here because we're seeing things that have been stolen, like a ring from the reign of Cleopatra, gold jewellery and gems of semi-precious stones, easy for me to say, a Roman artefact that did end up, of course, as we said there, on eBay. George Osborne, remember him? He is the chair of the British Museum. It does appear that all of this stuff has been happening without anyone noticing for a very, very long time. And now the Greeks have piped up and saying, well, you can't even, how do we know you're going to keep the Elgin marbles safe? And it does raise the question, if the Greeks wanted them, surely they could have just sent someone to come and pick them up and take them back by the looks of things.
Yeah, it has sadly given a lot of ammunition to people in that particular hot button topic, I'm afraid. Yeah, I agree with you. The thing is, the British Museum is a huge collection. It has a vast amount of things in reserve that are never on display. But what it does clearly go to show is security protocols can only be described as lax. Now, I know there will be people watching this now saying, you don't have any idea how we have to jump through hoops to touch things, look at things, and so on. But clearly, it's not been enough. If somebody in a privileged position can help themselves to this amount of stuff and then flog it in this relatively casual way over years, then they really do have to, sadly, seriously look at their security protocols, because they take seriously, as we all do, the fact that they're the repository of yesterday's evidence for today's study and for the future when we don't know even what the questions will be asked of these things. Well, things that have gone missing on eBay are not going to be there to be explored by tomorrow's students, by the children today who will be the experts of tomorrow. So it really is shocking. There's no question about it.
I just think it turns us into a complete and utter laughingstock, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, the idea that they can be the custodians of all of this stuff and then not notice when... I mean, nearly 2,000 artefacts. It is not just the odd bloke walking in and pilfering a couple of little items. I mean, this is a concerted campaign. And also, clearly an idiot. This is the other element to this. I could just about understand it if there was some kind of high-spec heist that had taken place here and people had decided to do something incredibly high-tech and all of that stuff. But the person who's nicked this stuff didn't even have any way of disposing it. They slapped it on eBay for 40 quid. I mean, we have literally been mugged off by a mug, haven't we?
It is extraordinary. I mean, it is stealing on an industrial scale and the disposing of stolen artifacts in the most amateurish way. So it's this strange combination: industrial scale stealing and amateur disposal. It really could not be made up. If this was, on a television series, it would be sent back and told, let's make this a bit more real, shall we? Because industrial scale theft, amateur disposal, shocking. It really is tragic.